While much of the world still sees Africa through a single, simplified lens, North Africa is quietly defying expectations, building a legacy of resilience and diversity that challenges the myth of a homogeneous continent. Recent reports show that as Agenda 2063 promises a united and prosperous Africa, powerful narratives threaten to erase the indigenous identities of millions. The stakes for African unity and identity have never been higher. Before we go any further, I want to invite you to be part of this movement. If you believe in honest storytelling and want Africa's real complexity to reach more people, hit subscribe, like, or share this video right now. Your support helps us keep producing in-depth research, challenge stereotypes, and grow a global community that values truth over headlines. Every new subscriber and every share amplifies voices that are too often ignored. Let's set the scene. Africa is not a monolith. Its history, peoples, and future are shaped by a tapestry of cultures, languages, and identities stretching from the Mediterranean coast to the Cape of Good Hope. Yet, in recent years, a troubling narrative has gained traction. The idea that, to be truly African, one must be black from north to south. This idea, repeated in media and political discourse, is not just inaccurate, it is dangerous. It risks erasing the indigenous populations of North Africa, particularly the Amazigh, also known as Berbers, whose roots in the region stretch back thousands of years. To understand why this matters, we need to look at the African Union's Agenda 2063. Launched as a blueprint for the continent's transformation, Agenda 2063 aims to create a prosperous, integrated, and peaceful Africa. It promises economic growth, poverty eradication, and greater unity among African nations. For North Africa, this means not only economic integration with the rest of the continent, but also a renewed focus on peace, security, and the rule of law. The vision is ambitious, a continent where every nation, every group, and every individual can thrive. But as the continent moves toward this vision, old wounds and new tensions threaten to undermine progress. The myth that North Africans are not truly African, or worse, that they are invaders or outsiders, has deep roots. It is fueled by simplistic racial categories, historical misunderstandings, and, at times, political agendas that benefit from division. This myth ignores both the genetic and historical evidence that North Africa's populations are indigenous, diverse, and deeply connected to the continent's broader story. Let's start with the facts. The indigenous populations of North Africa, particularly in the Maghreb region, modern-day Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, and parts of Egypt, are known as Amazigh or Berbers. Their presence in the region predates the arrival of Arabs, Romans, and even the ancient Egyptians. Egyptian inscriptions from as early as 1700 BC mention tribes like the Temehu, while later records describe the Shasu around 1300 BC. These are not the marks of outsiders, but of peoples who have shaped the region's history for millennia. Genetic studies reinforce this story. Recent data from population genetics, including research published in journals like Nature and Science, shows that the populations of the Maghreb carry unique genetic markers that set them apart from both sub-Saharan Africans and populations of the Middle East or Europe. In the Eastern Maghreb, for example, researchers have found strong genetic and cultural resilience to incoming populations. While the Western Maghreb shows some European farmer ancestry up to 80% in certain groups, this is the result of ancient migrations and admixture, not recent invasions. The core genetic signature of the region remains distinctly North African. This continuity is remarkable when you consider the waves of migration and conquest that have swept across North Africa over the centuries. The Arab expansion, which began in the 7th century, brought profound cultural, linguistic, and religious changes. Yet, as genetic evidence makes clear, these changes were achieved primarily through assimilation and conversion, not by replacing the indigenous population. The Berbers, Egyptians, and other groups maintained their presence, adapting to new influences while preserving their own identities. So why does the myth of the North African invader persist? Part of the answer lies in the way history is told. For centuries, external observers, whether European colonizers, Middle Eastern chroniclers, or even some African voices, have projected their own categories onto the region. The result is a narrative that divides Africa into a white north and a black south, ignoring the continent's true diversity. This narrative is not only inaccurate, it is harmful. It erases the lived experiences of millions of North Africans who do not fit neatly into these categories. The danger of this narrative is not abstract. In recent years, exclusionary racial discourses have gained ground across Africa. The idea that Africa must be black from north to south has been used to question the legitimacy of North African identities, to marginalize indigenous populations, and even to justify political or social exclusion. In some cases, this has led to real-world consequences, discrimination, loss of cultural rights, and, in the most extreme cases, violence. Observers note that the process of becoming black is a common experience for African migrants, especially those moving from sub-Saharan Africa to North Africa or Europe. This process involves not just a change in how others see them, but a transformation of social identity, one that is shaped by external stereotypes and internalized narratives. For North Africans, the reverse is often true. They are told they are not black enough to be truly African, or that their heritage is somehow foreign. This is not just a matter of semantics. Divisive narratives have real power. Throughout history, ethnicity and race have been used as tools to incite conflict, justify exclusion, and consolidate power. The Rwandan genocide, the wars in Bosnia and Guatemala, and countless other tragedies have shown how quickly identity politics can escalate into violence. In Africa, where ethnic and cultural diversity is the norm, the risks are especially acute. Recent reports indicate that ethnic and religious tensions in North Africa have already led to political unrest. In Algeria, for example, the 2019 ban on the Amazigh flag sparked protests and highlighted the ongoing struggle for recognition among indigenous groups. In Libya, Tunisia, and Morocco, debates over language, identity, and representation continue to shape political discourse. These are not isolated incidents. They are part of a broader pattern in which exclusionary narratives threaten the social fabric of entire nations. The economic context adds another layer of complexity. North Africa, with its higher average GDP per capita compared to sub-Saharan Africa, is often seen as distinct from the rest of the continent. This economic divide has fueled migration, shaped perceptions, and at times reinforced stereotypes. Yet, as recent data shows, economic growth has not eliminated inequality or resolved underlying tensions. In fact, in regions where economic disparities align with ethnic or cultural divisions, the risk of conflict is even greater. So, what does the DNA evidence really tell us about North Africa's populations? Studies of the Maghreb reveal a picture of remarkable continuity and diversity. The Amazigh, who number over 30 million across North Africa, carry genetic markers that trace back thousands of years. Their ancestry is a blend of ancient North African lineages, Paleolithic gene flow from the Near East, and, in some cases, admixture from Europe and sub-Saharan Africa. This genetic mosaic is not the result of recent invasions, but of millennia of migration, trade, and cultural exchange. The presence of light-skinned Berbers, for example, is often cited as evidence of foreign ancestry, but genetic studies show that these traits are the result of ancient admixture, not recent population replacement. The core identity of the region remains Amazigh, shaped by centuries of adaptation and resilience. The same is true for other groups in North Africa, including Egyptians, Tuareg, and various Arabized communities. Their histories are intertwined, their identities fluid, and their roots undeniably African. This brings us back to Agenda 2063. The African Union's vision for the continent is one of unity in diversity, a continent where every nation, every group, and every individual is valued. But this vision cannot be achieved if exclusionary narratives are allowed to take root. The myth that North Africans are invaders or that Africa must be racially homogeneous undermines the very foundation of unity. It divides communities, fuels mistrust, and, in the worst cases, sets the stage for conflict. Observers warn that unchecked identity politics can lead to exclusionary policies, ethnic cleansing, and prolonged instability. In Africa, where the memory of past conflicts is still fresh, the stakes are especially high. The lessons of Rwanda, Bosnia, and other tragedies are clear. When societies allow divisive narratives to go unchallenged, the consequences can be catastrophic. So, what can be done? The answer begins with education and awareness. By understanding the true history and diversity of Africa, we can begin to challenge the myths that divide us. This means recognizing the indigenous status of North African populations, celebrating their contributions to the continent's history, and rejecting simplistic racial categories that erase their identities. It also means promoting policies that foster inclusion, protect minority rights, and encourage dialogue across ethnic and cultural lines. Its focus on interregional integration, democratic governance, and the rule of law is designed to create a continent where diversity is a source of strength, not division. But policy alone is not enough. True unity requires a change in mindset, a willingness to see beyond stereotypes, to listen to different voices, and to build bridges across divides. This is not always easy. In societies where identity has been politicized, where history has been rewritten to serve narrow interests, change can be slow, but it is possible. Throughout Africa's history, there are countless examples of coexistence, adaptation, and mutual respect. The ancient trade routes that linked North and Sub-Saharan Africa, the shared religious traditions, the intermarriage of communities, all of these are reminders that Africa's story is one of connection, not separation. Today, as the continent moves toward the goals of Agenda 2063, there is an opportunity to write a new chapter, one that honors the diversity of its peoples, protects the rights of indigenous communities, and builds a future where unity is grounded in respect for difference. Let's take a closer look at the historical context. The civilizations of North Africa, Egypt, Carthage, Numidia, and the Berber kingdoms were among the most advanced in the ancient world. They developed writing systems, built monumental architecture, and engaged in trade with Europe, the Middle East, and Sub-Saharan Africa. These societies were not isolated. They were part of a broader African and Mediterranean world. The arrival of Islam in the 7th century brought new cultural and religious influences, but it did not erase the indigenous populations. Instead, it led to a process of assimilation and adaptation. Many Amazigh adopted Islam while retaining their own languages and traditions. Over time, Arabic became the dominant language in much of the region, but the underlying identities remained. This pattern of adaptation is reflected in the genetic record. As noted earlier, the populations of the Maghreb show a blend of ancient North African, Near Eastern, and, to a lesser extent, European and Sub-Saharan African ancestry. This is not the result of a single invasion or migration, but of thousands of years of interaction. The myth of the North African invader is further undermined by historical records. Ancient Egyptian texts, Greek and Roman accounts, and archaeological evidence all point to the long-standing presence of indigenous populations in the region. The Berbers, for example, are mentioned in Egyptian records as early as the 2nd millennium BC. The civilizations of Egypt and Kerma predate major external invasions by centuries, if not millennia. So why do these myths persist? Part of the answer lies in the legacy of colonialism. European powers, in their efforts to divide and rule, often imposed artificial categories on African societies. They drew borders that ignored ethnic and cultural realities and promoted narratives that served their own interests. The result was a distorted understanding of Africa's history, one that continues to shape perceptions today. In the post-colonial era, these narratives have been adopted and adapted by different actors. In some cases, they are used to justify exclusion or discrimination. In others, they serve as rallying cries for unity or resistance. But whatever the motivation, the effect is the same: the erasure of indigenous identities and the perpetuation of division. This is not just a problem for North Africa. Across the continent, ethnic and racial narratives have been used to justify violence, exclusion, and even genocide. The lessons of the past are clear. When societies allow these narratives to go unchallenged, the consequences can be devastating. Observers point to the dangers of identity-based mobilization. When political leaders exploit ethnic or racial divisions for their own gain, the result is often conflict, displacement, and instability. In Africa, where state institutions are sometimes weak and social divisions run deep, the risks are especially high. The solution, according to experts, is to promote unity without erasing diversity. This means recognizing and respecting the rights of all groups, protecting minority cultures, and fostering dialogue across divides. It also means challenging the myths and stereotypes that fuel division. Agenda 2063 offers a framework for this kind of unity. Its emphasis on integration, good governance, and human rights is designed to create a continent where diversity is celebrated, not feared. But achieving this vision will require more than policy. It will require a shift in mindset. Education is key. By teaching the true history of Africa, including the contributions of North African civilizations and the indigenous status of groups like the Amazigh, we can begin to challenge the myths that divide us. This is not just a matter of correcting the record, it is a matter of justice. It is also a matter of security. As recent events have shown, unchecked ethnic and racial tensions can quickly escalate into violence. In North Africa, as in other parts of the continent, the risk of conflict is real. The lessons of Rwanda, Bosnia, and other tragedies are clear. When societies allow divisive narratives to go unchallenged, the consequences can be catastrophic. But there is hope. Across Africa, there are countless examples of communities coming together to build a better future. The Pan-African movement, which began as a response to colonialism and racism, continues to inspire efforts to promote unity and justice. The African Union, through Agenda 2060, is working to create a continent where every nation, every group, and every individual can thrive. This vision is within reach, but only if we are willing to confront the myths and narratives that divide us. By recognizing the true diversity of Africa, by honoring the indigenous populations of North Africa, and by rejecting exclusionary narratives, we can build a future where unity is grounded in respect for difference. Let's return to the DNA evidence for a moment. The genetic studies of Maghreb populations are not just scientific curiosities, they are powerful reminders of the region's deep roots and enduring resilience. The Amazigh, Egyptians, and other groups of North Africa are not outsiders or invaders. They are the original inhabitants of the region with histories that stretch back thousands of years. Their genetic signatures tell a story of adaptation, survival, and continuity. They show that, despite waves of migration and conquest, the core identity of the region has remained intact. This is a testament to the strength and resilience of North Africa's indigenous populations, a strength that should be celebrated, not erased. But celebration alone is not enough. As the continent moves toward the goals of Agenda 2063, there is a pressing need to protect the rights of indigenous populations, to promote inclusion, and to foster dialogue across divides. This is not just a matter of justice, it is a matter of survival. The risks of inaction are clear. When societies allow exclusionary narratives to go unchallenged, the result is often conflict, displacement, and instability. In Africa, where the memory of past tragedies is still fresh, the stakes are especially high. Observers warn that the failure to address ethnic and racial tensions can lead to devastating consequences. In regions where economic disparities align with ethnic divisions, the risk of conflict is even greater. The lessons of history are clear. Unity cannot be achieved by erasing difference. It must be built on a foundation of respect, inclusion, and justice. So, what does this mean for the future of Africa? It means recognizing the true diversity of the continent, honoring the contributions of all its peoples, and rejecting the myths that divide us. It means building a future where unity is grounded in respect for difference, where every nation, every group, and every individual is valued. This is the vision of Agenda 2063, a vision that is ambitious but achievable. By working together, by challenging the narratives that divide us, and by promoting inclusion and justice, we can build a continent where every voice is heard, every culture is respected, and every individual can thrive. To better understand the present, let's look at some specific regional case studies. In Morocco, the Amazigh language has gained official recognition, but the struggle for cultural rights and political representation continues. Reports from organizations like Minority Rights Group International highlight ongoing challenges, including limited access to education in Amazigh languages and underrepresentation in government. In Algeria, the Amazigh New Year, Yenaya, was only recently recognized as a national holiday after decades of activism. Yet tensions persist, as seen in the protests following the ban on Amazigh symbols. Tunisia offers another perspective. After the 2011 revolution, there was a renewed interest in Amazigh identity, but progress has been slow. Many Amazigh communities still face barriers to cultural expression, and their languages are rarely taught in schools. Libya, meanwhile, has seen both setbacks and advances. The fall of the Gaddafi regime allowed Amazigh communities to assert their identity more openly, but ongoing instability has made it difficult to secure lasting rights. Egypt's story is equally complex. The country's Coptic Christians, Nubians, and Amazigh communities have all faced challenges related to identity and recognition. While Egypt is often celebrated for its ancient civilization, the diversity of its modern population is less frequently acknowledged. This lack of recognition can fuel feelings of exclusion and marginalization. Zooming out, the broader Maghreb region has seen waves of migration both within Africa and to Europe. Economic pressures, political instability, and conflict have driven millions to seek opportunities elsewhere. This migration has shaped perceptions of identity both at home and abroad. In Europe, North African migrants often face discrimination and are sometimes caught between competing narratives about their origins and belonging. The economic dimension is crucial. North Africa's relative prosperity, compared to some sub-Saharan countries, has created both opportunities and tensions. Agenda 2063 aims to bridge these divides by promoting greater economic integration, infrastructure development, and cross-border cooperation. The African Continental Free Trade Area, for example, is designed to boost intra-African trade and create new opportunities for growth. Yet, as experts point out, economic integration must go hand in hand with social and cultural inclusion. Let's not overlook the role of education. Curricula across North Africa have often reflected dominant narratives, sometimes at the expense of minority histories and languages. Efforts to reform education systems are underway, but progress is uneven. In Morocco, for instance, the inclusion of Amazigh language instruction in schools is a step forward, but implementation remains patchy. In Algeria and Tunisia, similar initiatives face bureaucratic and political hurdles. Media representation also plays a powerful role in shaping perceptions. North African identities are often simplified or misrepresented in both African and international media. This can reinforce stereotypes and contribute to the erasure of indigenous histories. Positive change is possible, however, as more Amazigh voices find platforms online and through independent media outlets. Recent documentaries and investigative reports, such as those featured by Al Jazeera and France 24, have begun to highlight the struggles and achievements of North Africa's indigenous peoples, bringing their stories to a wider audience and challenging old stereotypes. International organizations and civil society groups are increasingly active in this space. The Amazigh World Congress and Minority Rights Group, International, for example, advocate for the rights of indigenous peoples and work to raise awareness of their histories and challenges. Their efforts, combined with grassroots activism, have led to important gains, but the struggle is far from over. Let's expand the lens to consider the broader geopolitical context. North Africa's strategic position at the crossroads of Africa, Europe, and the Middle East has shaped its history and continues to influence its present. The Sahara Desert, Mediterranean coastline, and ancient trade routes have fostered both isolation and connection, creating societies that are at once distinct and deeply intertwined with the rest of the continent. This geography has made North Africa a focal point for migration, commerce, and cultural exchange, but also for conflict and competition among regional and global powers. The legacy of colonialism remains deeply felt. European powers carved up North Africa in the 19th and 20th centuries, imposing artificial borders and administrative systems that often ignored local realities. The French in Algeria and Morocco, the Italians in Libya, and the British in Egypt all left their mark, shaping the region's political, economic, and social structures. The struggle for independence in the mid-20th century was marked by both unity and division, as different groups sought to assert their rights and define their place in the new nation-states. Today, the region faces new challenges. The Arab Spring, which began in Tunisia in 2010, unleashed a wave of political upheaval that swept across North Africa and the Middle East. While some countries have made progress toward democracy and inclusion, others have experienced conflict, repression, or stalled reform. The ongoing instability in Libya, the protests in Algeria and Sudan, and the persistent economic challenges in Egypt and Tunisia all illustrate the complex and often fragile nature of the region's political landscape. Agenda 2063 seeks to address these challenges by promoting greater integration, good governance, and respect for diversity. The African Union's early warning system monitors potential sources of conflict, including those related to identity and ethnicity, and works to prevent escalation. The African Charter on Human and People's Rights affirms the rights of all groups to cultural expression and participation, providing a legal framework for the protection of minority and indigenous rights. Yet, implementation remains uneven. Much depends on the political will of individual states and the engagement of civil society. In some cases, governments have embraced the language of inclusion while continuing to marginalize minority groups. In others, activists and community leaders have succeeded in winning recognition and rights only to face new obstacles in practice. The risks of failing to address these issues are not hypothetical. History offers sobering lessons. The Rwandan genocide, fueled by ethnic narratives and propaganda, remains a stark reminder of how quickly identity politics can spiral out of control. In Sudan, the Darfur conflict was driven in part by disputes over identity, land, and resources. In both cases, the international community was slow to respond, and the consequences were devastating. Observers warn that similar dynamics could emerge elsewhere if exclusionary narratives are left unchecked. In North Africa, the intersection of economic inequality, political marginalization, and identity-based discrimination creates fertile ground for unrest. Agenda 2063 recognizes these risks and calls for proactive measures to promote inclusion, protect minority rights, and foster dialogue. At the continental level, the African Union has taken steps to address these challenges. The AU was established to promote unity, solidarity, and integration among African states, succeeding the Organization of African Unity. Its expanded mandate includes conflict management, human rights promotion, good governance, and increased cooperation among member states. The AU champions citizen inclusion and works to integrate African economies through trade agreements and policy coordination. African leaders advocate for fairer global representation and a stronger continental voice in international negotiations. Pan-Africanism, as both a philosophy and a movement, continues to inspire efforts to build solidarity and political integration across Africa. Community meetings, academic studies, and grassroots initiatives all contribute to the dialogue on managing diversity and promoting unity. The University of Cape Town's UDISA project, for example, brings together scholars and practitioners to explore new approaches to conflict management and social cohesion. Looking ahead, the path to unity and peace in Africa will require sustained effort on multiple fronts. Economic development, political reform, and cultural recognition must go hand in hand. Agenda 2063 provides a roadmap, but success will depend on the willingness of governments, communities, and individuals to embrace diversity and reject exclusionary narratives. As we approach the conclusion, let's recap the key points. North Africa's indigenous populations are not outsiders or invaders. They are the original inhabitants of the region, with deep roots and enduring resilience. The myth of a racially homogeneous Africa is not only inaccurate, it is dangerous. It threatens to erase the identities of millions, fuel conflict, and undermine the continent's future. Agenda 2063 offers hope. Its vision of unity in diversity is ambitious but achievable. By promoting inclusion, protecting minority rights, and fostering dialogue, Africa can build a future where every nation, every group, and every individual is valued. The lessons of history are clear. When societies allow divisive narratives to go unchallenged, the consequences can be catastrophic. But when they embrace diversity and work toward unity, they unlock the potential for peace, prosperity, and progress. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you believe in the power of unity, in the importance of understanding Africa's true history, and in the need to protect the rights of all its peoples, we invite you to share your thoughts below. What do you see as the greatest challenge to African unity today? Is it history, politics, or something else? Join the conversation, and let's build a more informed, united future together.